Okay, so we're going to get started. Amanda is going to present first. Her topic is going to be on how to buy a new computer.
You want me to start?
I was just going to say Amanda is our Amanda is our Director of Operations here at Tech Lab. She's been an employee of Tech Lab since 2013. She has her Master's of Education in Instructional Technology. And here at Tech Lab, Amanda does business development, sales, and marketing, and she's been buying computers for Tech Lab ever since she started working with Tech Lab. So she's uniquely suited to present on this topic. And would you like to take it away, Amanda?
I can do that. All right, so I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see what's going on. And now we've got the puppies muted. So, all right, give me 1 second. I have to find the right screen. There it is. Okay. So what we're going to talk about, as Michelle said, is what to consider when you are buying a new computer. So there's lots of different factors. And the first thing I need to do is start the slideshow. There we go. Okay, so the first thing you need to consider is it asks what kind of device that you want. But the first question that we ask our customers and clients is, how are you going to use the machine? That is probably the biggest factor of what you're going to do when you're looking for a machine. Do you need it to be portable? So do you want it to be small and lightweight? And depending on literally how you use it, whether it's like just checking email and internet browsing, sometimes you may not even want a computer, and really what you need is a tablet. So it's really important for you to assess the how you're going to be using the device and what you're going to be using it for, and then what things that you prefer in the system you will be using. Maybe you want a full-size keyboard and a good screen, then you're probably going to want more of a laptop or a computer in general over a tablet. Or if you want a keyboard but you still want the tablet, you know, there's options there too. Part of the overwhelming part of buying a computer, especially these days, is there's so many choices and so many choices of how do I near this, where do I go, all of that. So we're hoping that we can give you a few tips today to kind of help give you some of that focus. And then you got to think about too, like, are there certain things that you want to be able to plug into your computer? You know, a second screen, a TV, a mouse, you know, any of that kind of stuff, because then we got to keep track of all of that so that we know how many ports you need in general. And another overall thing is, obviously we think about the fact that laptops are portable, movable, you can put them anywhere, you can take them with you anywhere, but desktops can be cheaper and they can be more reliable. They're also easier to upgrade and repair. So if something would go wrong, it's way easier to swap one component inside of a desktop than it is in a laptop, just because of the nature of the setup and how they are built. So just some things to keep in mind, and it all depends on your preferences and how you're using it and what you're going to be using it for. Okay, so then once you think about what preferences you have in relation to a computer and how you're using it, then the next thing you need to think about is your budget. So boxes, computers straight out of the box can range anywhere from about $100 all the way over to over $2,000. And those numbers can be overwhelming to some people. And you got to think about what you want to break it down to. So in general, our advice is to spend a little bit more on a computer so that it doesn't get as outdated and it just is going to last you longer. In general, we consider a budget of anywhere around $700 to $900 for a decent computer that's going to last you a solid 3 to 5 years, maybe longer depending on how you use it and what you use it for. You can expect a $100 to $200 and sometimes even the $300 computers to last you about a year or two. Sometimes they're going to be extremely slow right out of the box. It's also just important to keep in mind that if you purchase a computer that is cheaper than what you actually need, you're going to be unhappy with it right from the beginning. even though you just got it, and it's not going to perform to the expectations that you have for it. And then just also you need to think about too, there's the price of the computer, but there's also the price of the antivirus. There's the price of Microsoft Office, data transfer, any other programs that you use that you would need to purchase again. So just kind of keep that, you know, do you need a new printer, and do you need a wireless mouse? All of those additional things that would be technically on top of the price of the computer. But then you got to think of the else as well. Okay, questions that we get frequently is, I really only use my computer for email. Can I get away with a $200 computer? And we're like, maybe. It depends on, you got to think about what you use in your, what's in your email, you know? Are you looking at videos and graphics and that kind of stuff? Then maybe a $200 computer just isn't gonna work for what you need as well. You may think, well, I really only do this, but you got to think of how you're using it as well. And otherwise, again, you'll have to replace it again. And so you'll spend the time of all that data transfer and anything, you know, setting it all up. And then a year or two later, you'll spend that time again. Okay, so then you also need to think, another question we have is, well, could I get a used computer? And in general, they're fine computers. They're usually certified, and they can be a cheaper way to go. But you do just need to think about that they do have some sort of wear and tear on them. So sometimes you need to be wary of what's actually wrong with it. You know, is it a dent in the box? Was it something else that went wrong with it that's just going to continue to be wrong with it? So you got to keep that in mind too if you're ready to get a used computer. Okay, so then operating system. We've had some people asking us about operating system. So once you kind of have your budget in mind, you also need to consider, again, what are you comfortable using? And it honestly comes down to what the user likes and what they are going to be using the computer for. In general, Macs tend to be more expensive, and they honestly have more of a set price. Like an iMac is going to run you about $1,100. There's really no way around it. That is the price of an iMac, period. Versus other PCs, you know, you may be able to get other things depending on what's happening and be, you know, able to fluctuate the price a little bit. But in general, Macs are a little bit more secure. And if you're going to be doing any sort of graphic processing or design or anything like that, websites, in general, Macs are better for that. They just have better software, and they're meant for that type of usage. In general, Windows machines work very well. They are less secure than a Mac, but there are ways to make them secure through antivirus, through malware protection, you know, using a tech company to kind of help make sure you're set, but there's ways to make them secure, and they are less expensive than a Mac. There's also a lot of more software options available, and in general, people find that their software is more compatible with a Windows machine than a Mac machine, but it just kind of depends, and sometimes it takes some research of if there's a certain program that you're using and it only works with Windows, then you kind of need a Windows machine. Versus if, you know, it can be both Mac and Windows, then your options are not as limited. There are tons of options within Windows. I mean, Windows just means like Windows 10. Then within that, you have your brands, your Dells, your HPs, your Acers, your Asuses, all of the different brands underneath that, okay? Windows 10 is the best operating system that is out there for Windows 10 right now. It is the one that is supported. And it's kind of difficult to buy anything that's less than that, partly because, like I said, it's the only one that's supported right now by Microsoft. And so that means that the security is going to be better in it. You can do between Home and Pro. Pro has a little bit more security built into it, but Home is usually a cheaper option if you need to do that. If you don't think you need a full-fledged computer, but you still like the idea of a computer, another option is to get a Chromebook. And those right around $300-ish, and they're fairly cheap, and they're also fairly reliable. I had a Chromebook for about 5 years, and I loved it. I loved just being able to grab it, browse, do what I needed to do. And the only reason I stopped doing it is because it just got slow, and it just kind of got antiquated, honestly. I got it in 2012. By the time 2017 came around, it wasn't working the way I wanted it to. But they're great computers. And lots of options within those too. Okay, So then from there, you need to consider what you currently have on your computer. So in general, you're going to want a better computer. You're going to want to purchase a better computer than you currently have so that it lasts you a longer period of time, and it's going to keep up with your demands of the future. And so if you are also running out of space, you're going to want more hard drive space available. If your computer is currently really slow, you're going to want to have more RAM than you currently have and a better processor. You may also, if you currently have a regular hard drive and it's a slow computer, you're probably going to want to get a solid state drive so that it increases the speed 2 to 4 times what you currently have. And same with a better processor as well. And then also consider what programs you currently have and are required to use or want to use. Again, that's going to factor into your space. That's going to factor in to what is going to be best for you and your computer. And then we kind of talked to, but just consider how you want to use the computer. So descriptions are out there on computers. Some say gaming computers, and some people get overwhelmed or like, whoa, I don't need a gaming computer. I'm not a gamer. But these usually tend to be solid, very reliable computers. And again, think of how you're going to want to use it. If you're going to be doing video editing, video streaming, you may want a video gaming computer, a gaming computer, because those are designed for graphics and they have higher end components in them so that you can handle processes that happen like that. So gaming computers are not necessarily bad and you shouldn't be overwhelmed by them. Sometimes a description says a budget computer, or just like a home computer or something like that. And they can be cheaper models. And so you got to think of too, if you're going to be using it for work and using it more like a workhorse, you may need you may find that a budget computer is not going to fit your needs. But if at the same time you're mainly just kind of using it at home on the evenings and weekends, you just kind of want to check internet, browse the internet, kind of that, or check email, browse the internet, that a budget computer may be fine for you. So it does boil down a lot to your needs. Okay, then in general, when it comes to processors, they can be scary and overwhelming for people as well, but you generally want more cores and higher numbers. Right now, an i3 is incredibly slow. Anything that says i3, immediately cross it off your list if you're going through and trying to purchase on your own. Now, the tricky part is i5s and i7s, in general, are better, but the speed does not just depend on how many cores it has. There are i5s that are perform better than an i7 right now. You really have to look at the model and break that down. And if you're not sure how to do that, please talk to our company, please talk to somebody who does, because you're going to be sad and disappointed if it does not run as fast as you want. We try to bench things. I think our minimum bench right now is like 6,000. And then we've got a website that we use to kind of track that. And I do this for my own home usage computers because I wanted to have a good processor. My sister earlier this summer needed a new computer and basically asked me to find her one. And I had to look at each individual processor, and if it was less than 6,000 or if it was at like 3,000, I immediately crossed it off. I said, that's not even worth my time. You know, so that the processor makes a big deal because that's going to be how fast your computer is going to run and perform. Okay, so then the hard drive. A solid state drive it has smaller devices and it uses electrical components instead of manual components. And so it's faster to start up and it's more reliable. But the size of the hard drive also is important. Again, I mentioned you need to see what the size of the drive is you're using right now. And then you also want to be able to expand upon what you currently have. And I think we've showed you before how to do that, but if you don't know how to do that, connect with us. We can show you how to check to see how much space you're currently using, and then we can go from there of suggesting how much space you should get. Hard drives sizes have gone up a lot in general, but the files sizes have remained the same, and you can also save things to the cloud. So there's ways to navigate around the space thing, but just kind of keep it in mind of what you currently have and then what you may need. Okay, so then on the right side it says RAM. In general, more is better. 8 gigabytes is the absolute minimum that you want to have. You need at least 8 gigabytes to run Windows 10, period. and run it well. In general, I try to get at least 12 or 16 gigabytes, but at a bare minimum, you need 8 gigabytes. The GPU is if you're doing video editing. Then you got to think about things like if you want the number pad on the right. Somebody in accounting, that's probably super important to them, but not everybody cares about that. Do you want a webcam, or does that not matter to you? Do you want it to be like a separate piece? Because that can be an option too. How many USB ports do you want? And that is the things that you're going to plug in, like I said, like a wireless mouse, your actual USB sticks, or anything else that you're plugging into the computer. You got to think about that, like a printer. You got to think about all of those things as well to know what device is going to be best for you. And again, some of these, there's ways to get around. We can always put in an external USB or an external number pad. We can always add a port so that you can have more USB extensions. Some of them we can't change, like adding in a Bluetooth, we can't really change that. So if that's important to you, you need to get that immediately. A microphone, that's an important thing. You need to do that immediately. Battery life, that's totally up to you and how long you want it to be unplugged. And so if you're okay with 6 hours, it's fine. If you're more like a 12-hour person, then you got to think about that. Does touchscreen matter to you? You know, that can limit your choices or not, depending. If weight is a matter to you, especially obviously regarding the laptops, how heavy are you okay carrying it around? Same with screen size. Do you want a 13-inch? Do you want 12-inch? Do you want 15, 17? Like, what screen size are you comfortable looking at? And then in general, durability, that's like the components and what it's made of and that kind of stuff. So we honestly consider all of those. One that's not on here that may or may not be important, but I'm going to tell you if it is, it's super hard to find, is a CD drive. Most computers, laptops do not come with CD drives anymore. There is one brand that does. I'm pretty sure it was HP, but they are the only ones that do it. Now, again, if you're not using it on a regular basis, we can hook you up with an external CD drive, not a problem. So just kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, that super limits your choices if that's an absolute necessary for you. So all of those things that go into it are important to figuring this out. So, all right, people always ask me, Amanda, where do I go to buy a computer? Well, you can go in store. Places like Best Buy, Office Depot, Walmart, any of those kind of things, you know, places have them, but also keep them in mind that they may not be the top quality that you're looking for either, okay? You can go in a store and you can see it before you try buying it. And so that might be helpful if you want to kind of get an idea of what you're looking at. Then they usually have warranties that you can buy, but honestly, they're not usually super helpful, and we don't usually recommend those. Sometimes the prices in a store can be higher because of the extra overhead, but some people like walking to a store and walking out with a product that day, and so that could be an option if that's how you want to shop. Then there's lots of places online you can purchase from. Just make note of who you're purchasing it from, because not everybody is as good of a seller as other places, especially if you're doing like one-offs or that kind of stuff, or even check your buyers on Amazon if you're going through Amazon, because not everybody is going to be as reputable as others. Read the reviews, check the description 2 or 3 times, make sure you've got everything that you wanted to have. And then also just kind of watch for sales if you have some flexibility, like you know you're going to be needing a computer, but you don't right now. Cyber Monday is a good time to do it. Black Friday. Those times are going to be here before we know it, and so those can be good times to stock up on technology. But there's other times in the year too that are just as good to purchase the computer, and sometimes you're desperate and you don't have a choice, and so that's kind of the way life is too. Also just kind of watch shipping dates as well when you're purchasing online. So again, if you need it right now, but the shipping date is going to be a month from now, that could be a problem. So and then just in general, like if everything I said to you is like super overwhelming, you're like, I don't even know where to start. She said a lot. First of all, there is a recording of this. But second of all, TechLab would be happy to work with you. We are consultants in the end. And so we can ask you these questions that I just went over. We can work with you to find the best computer that's going to be fit for you and your needs. And we really do tailor it to fit you and what you are working on. So we can ask you your budget and then go from there. We could also build you a computer. Sometimes the components and then putting it together is cheaper than actually buying an actual machine. That mainly only works for desktops though. So if you're looking at a laptop, that's a different story. And then we have also launched a PC building experience for any kids who are 8 and older. And so if they want to experience setting up their own computer, including installing all the components and setting it up, that is a package that we would love to work with you and tell you more about for any kids that you know who are 8 and older. So thank you for listening to us, and let me know if you guys have any questions.
What's this on features? You were talking a CD drive. What is that?
I didn't quite hear you. Can you say it again?
On when you were talking about the features,
yeah,
you were talking about a CD drive, or am I?
Oh, a CD drive. Yeah, that's the drive where you put a CD into your computer. The circle compact disc. That's what it is.
Oh,
Or
okay.
DVDs.
Or DVD drive. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you guys have any other questions?
What is the good size of the memory? I would say how many gigabytes you would recommend, like a decent size that for personal uses.
A minimum would be 8 gigabytes. I'd probably tend more towards 12 or 16. It's 8 or 16 are going to be more common, but I wouldn't go any lower than 8.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yep.
What does a Chromebook look like? I know the neighbors, they have kids from, that got Chromebooks from school, and who uses them besides kids?
When Michelle's presenting, I will run upstairs in my house and I'll go get one because my husband has one. They're just a smaller computer. I mean, they're not even that small. But then I can show you what it looks like.
Okay.
You were talking, Amanda, that you did like your Chromebook. I must say that I have Chromebook from work and I hate it.
But it depends on the usage of it, because if you're going to use it for work, yeah, I would hate it too. I was using it for my personal email, doing my personal Google searches, browsing Facebook, and then like typing my own independent stuff that I wanted to have. If I was doing anything hardcore, you're right, I'd probably hate it too.
Oh, okay.
What's the difference between a tablet and an iPad?
An iPad is a tablet. And so tablets are more of the Android version, just like you have your iPhones and your Android phones. The tablet is going to be your Android, different ones, and there's a million versions of them, but an iPad is the one that's made by Apple.
Well, I bought a tablet from Costco, and I've hardly used it at all. But I was told that it doesn't take, I don't know, it doesn't have some features that an iPad has. I don't know if it has to do like with photos or I don't know what other features, but also I guess it has email, but I don't know what else is missing from it that the iPad has. That's what I was told.
It probably boils down to the software, because an iPad has more software built into it. And then it just kind of depends on what you want to do with it. We could help you set up the apps that you want. I wouldn't be afraid of it because it doesn't perform like an iPad. I think it's just the software is not necessarily integrated into it as much as an iPad has stuff built right into it and right out of the box.
Is there a brand that you recommend, or it depends?
We have been buying a lot of Lenovo's in our office for laptops. Beyond that, and they're pretty solid machines. Beyond that, we honestly ask people's preferences because sometimes people have had bad buying experiences or they just have had a bad dud. And so they have a bad feeling about a machine. And so we'll keep that in mind too. Like if you absolutely hate Dells, okay, we're not going to find you a Dell. Like,
Oh, okay.
it's going to depend on what that is too. You know, when my sister asked me, she's like, I really either want a Dell or an HP. I'm like, okay, you know, so some people have loyalty brands, but performance-wise, Lenovo's are really good. Michelle, are we bringing anything else for iPad or for laptops? I think it's mainly
Lenovo is mainly the one. I mean, other than that, it's dependent on what people like. Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys have any other questions? I want Michelle to have time to present too, so we kind of got to move on.
I just want to say, if everybody's thinking about this still, is sometimes what I've heard from people when we give a similar presentation before is, I wish I'd have known this 2 months ago when I was buying my computer. If you just bought your computer, you might not be ready for this kind of a thing. But even if you could upgrade your computer. We could, TechLab or a different company like TechLab could upgrade your computer. So, you know, you bought the computer that was slow out of the box. We might be able to help you get it so it's faster. You know, you knew you should have bought 8 gigabytes, or you should have bought at least 8 gigabytes, and you didn't realize that at the time, and so you bought 4 gigabytes of RAM, and you're like, this isn't working.
Some of the things, as Michelle just said, are going to be upgradable. The RAM, definitely. The hard drive, we can help you. Some of the things are not going to be upgradable, but we can help you look at that too and see if we can help you and if it's worth it or not as well. So definitely be willing to do that for you. So, all right, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle. Michelle is going to be talking about internet browsers, and she has been a member of TechLab since March of 2019. She is our project coordinator, and I'm just going to say she's my right-hand person as well. So helps make all the things happen with me behind the scenes. So take it away, Michelle.
Hello, all. I'm going to be sharing my screen with you so you guys can see what this is. Today, I'm going to be talking to you guys about internet browsers. I'm pulling up the form that I had you guys fill out earlier just because some people don't even know what an internet browser is. And these are the icons that show up on these are the main icons that show up on your computer that people know. And so there are, Google Chrome is probably the most used one. But hold on, I'm gonna pull up the summary of everybody's responses. As you can see here, half of responses that I got from you guys are that you are using Google Chrome. And this is actually pretty typical. Most people are using Google Chrome. Some people are using Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer, Google Chrome just is like the browser of choice for many Android phones and Chromebooks. It is the one that everybody recommends. So it doesn't surprise me that a lot of people would be using Chrome. Internet Explorer and Microsoft Edge were the two programs that are native to the Windows platform. Internet Explorer is kind of like the older version of the older web browser for Windows. They're really pushing Edge these days. They're about to phase out Internet Explorer, so you know. So if you're having any issues with it, that would be why. Safari is the native browser for any kind of Apple device. If you've got a Mac, this is the one that shows up. If you've got an iPad or an iPhone, this is the one that you're using there as well. I say these things are the native things, so that they're just automatically loaded on your computer. They're automatically in your taskbar. If you open up the internet, this is what's automatically going to open up. Like you open up a hyperlink, this is what it's automatically going to open up. But that being said, for every device, you can download a different program. like Chrome, for example. And Mozilla Firefox was pretty popular, but it's gotten less popular recently, but it's still a good browser. So now I want to talk a little bit about the differences between the browsers. So Google Chrome is there's the same software, and this software is called Chromium, and most of this software underpins basically all of the browsers that are available anymore. The only one that's different is Mozilla Firefox. But how they use this software is how they use this Chromium software is very different. So different browsers are better for different things. I'm going to go over the browsers, these most common browsers that we talked about, but be aware that there are a lot of other browsers out there as well that have different features. That if you are specifically worried about privacy, for example, Brave might be a good one for you to use. If you want a browser that's really customizable, you might want a different browser as well. Google Chrome is a fast browser, but it's not the best browser for slower computers. So if you got one of those slow computers right out of the box, you may not actually want to use Chrome. You may prefer to use Edge or something like that. Safari has better video resolution than Chrome does. It's just the way the software is built, and it's better for your battery. Mozilla Firefox is just a slower browser. So if you're noticing that you're having some issues there in terms of performance, you may want to use a different one. Microsoft Edge used to be really awful, but now that Microsoft is really focusing on it, they just moved it over to the Chromium software, and now it has better video resolution, and it's better for your battery, and it's really fast. You know, it remains to be seen what they do with it, but right now it's looking a lot better than it was looking even 3 months ago. Internet Explorer, again, they're going to be phasing it out, so it's not the best one for you to use. So now I want to go over some different features that are available in browsers. If you guys have any questions about how to do this in your own browser, let me know and I can kind of walk you through it. So there are a lot of features in browsers. So the first one I want to talk about is syncing. So when you switch between devices, you can have your browser remember where you were on the first device and move it over to the second device. So I'm reading a news article, for example, right, on my phone. And then all of a sudden I move over to my computer and I want to finish reading the news article. If I am synced, then I will be able to do that. And the way that you do that is by logging into the browser. I'm in Chrome right now, but you can see right here that, can you guys see that actually? Yeah, okay. You guys can see that my sync is on, that I am logged in. And let me just pull it up here too as well. This is Edge. And you can see here I'm not synced, but if I wanted to sync, I would just click on here and then set up the sync. For every single of the browsers that we talked about, you can get them, except for I think maybe not Safari. Safari may not be available on Windows, not sure on that one. But for every other browser, you can get in, you can use, they're available for your tablet or your phone as well. So this feature of being logged into the browser also allows you to have autofill. Now I know that we talked previously about how you can use Password Manager to remember your passwords, but you can also actually use your browser to remember your passwords. So you can see here, if I clicked on this, then I would be able to see all my passwords that are stored on here. So usually what happens on a browser is you're typing in your password, and then the browser will ask you, a lot of you have probably been using this feature already, the browser will ask you, do you want to save this password or this login? And then you can tell it yes if you want to save it, or no if you don't want to save it. And if you've got this sync enabled, if you go to your different device, you'll be able to open it as well. You can also save financial information and contact information. This is a situation where I do recommend that you guys be a little bit careful with this, because if somebody else logs into your device, then all of a sudden, and you've been storing this all there in one spot, then all of a sudden they have access to all of this information. For the most part, it's fairly secure. This is really the only place you can log into it, but it does mean that the password that I choose for this syncing should be a good password. Another thing that I want to go over is extensions. So what extensions are is they are different features that are added to your web browser. So you can see I'm in the extensions here on Chrome. I want to specifically, this is in conjunction with what we've been talking about with cybersecurity. I want to talk about I want to show you what some of the extensions that we recommend for cybersecurity. We recommend uBlock Origin. That's this one right here. And you can see it up here as well. And I'll show you what it looks like here. But what it does is it blocks pop-ups. And you can see here that it has blocked 4 pop-ups just looking at this particular site right here. In WebRoot is the other extension that I want to mention, and this one is like a safe search basically. So I'm going to pull up a search so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Okay, move this over. You can see the green check mark there. That means it's okay for me to click on. If it wasn't okay for me to click on, I wouldn't see that green check mark. I would see like a yellow or red sign, and that means that I shouldn't click there. There's a lot of different extensions that are available, and basically every browser has these. However, extensions do not exist for mobile devices. So if you're going to do it on a mobile device, you may, in order to block pop-ups, sometimes what people, or to do safe search, sometimes what people do is use a browser like or a program like DuckDuckGo, which allows you to browse the internet in safe search mode. Or they put other programs on their phone, like an ad blocker that just goes on the phone as an actual app. Another thing that I want to talk about real quick is encryptions. The different web browsers have different encryption standards. What this means is that as websites get really old, some browsers won't read them right. And some browsers, the browsers that still understand the old websites language will still open them. So what this means in practicality speaking for you guys is that if you're trying to open a website and it doesn't open, try it on a different browser, odds are it may go through. Another thing that I want to show you guys is private browsing. So private browsing, so normally when you're typing in your login information, your computer saves it. That's to do with the autosave, and it also has to do with the cookies, how the website tracks your computer. But if you do private browsing, here in Chrome it's called incognito window. The Chrome isn't going to save any cookies or site data. This is what I use. This particular feature is what I use. Well, if you're going to do anything shady, this is what you want to use for it. But I always use it when I have multiple logins and my computer is getting confused because it's saying, okay, well, obviously you're trying to log in as your personal account. I'm like, no, I'm on my work computer. I'm trying to log in as my work account. But it gets confused. So I can log in here and it'll forget whatever I typed in there, and that's no problem with that. In this particular, in Chrome actually, you can have multiple accounts in the sync, so that can eliminate some of that confusion as well. You can see I got Tech Corporate here as well as I'm one of my, and also a guest, in case I have like any, you know, small friends around, children around that want to use my computer, but they don't need to be in my bookmarks or whatever.
Know too though that if your sync is on, it's going to sync everything that you have saved, all of your bookmarks, all of everything across all of your devices. So just make sure that you mentally think about that and are okay with that. I personally choose not to sync because I don't want my personal stuff mixed up with my business stuff. And that's my personal decision, and that's how I choose to do it. But just kind of know that as well, that that's going to happen. And so if you do sync, you're going to see your personal stuff at work and vice versa. So just keep that in mind. Michelle explained a great way. If you have different logins, it may be okay, but just, yeah, keep that in mind.
Another way that people use it is because like if you do a search for something, like a trip, sometimes you'll get a lot of ads for that trip afterwards. And if you don't want to get all the ads for the trip afterwards, it's also a good way to do that. The last, I want to be mindful of everybody's time here. So the last thing I want to show you is a section in the browser that you'll want to look at. It's called privacy and security. And it's in different places on different browsers. Well, usually in this kind of section up here, that's just the web section in the settings. I'll show you here on Edge real quick. Here it's privacy and services, but it's also site permissions. But basically, I recommend that you go through this section and just read through it, because out of the box, Chrome is okay for pretty good for privacy, but it's even safer if you go ahead and read through this and make the settings what you want them to be. And the same is true for every single browser. The other thing that's important, and I'm going to say that, and is to keep your browser updated. Your browser automatically updates itself for the most part, but if it's not automatically updating itself, you'll want to get it to you'll want to update it. All right, what kind of questions do people have?
What's the difference between Google and Google Chrome?
Google is like the company that developed Chrome. So Google Chrome is the official name of the browser. Some people are referring to the browser itself when they just say Google. It's still Google Chrome.
Because I used to have both of those on my computer, but for some reason or other, now I just see Google Chrome. I don't know, do I still need the Google one? The icon?
What you probably had before is you had a shortcut to the actual search engine, like the search page, and now you just have the browser. You don't need both. You can function fine just with the browser.
Thank you.
Since you had asked, I went and got, oh, except for it's white, sorry. This is my husband's Chromebook. I'll try it, there you go. Maybe I'll turn my background off. So it's small, but it's not super whatever. And this is an Acer, but there's other companies that make it. Not to take away from Michelle's presentation, but you asked me what it looked like.
Yeah, it looks like a little laptop.
It is, pretty much, yeah. It's about 12 inches, so.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.